What is up, boys? Welcome back to Ran When Parked. Now, I don't want you to get too excited because we are not working on the Ultima GTR today, despite the fact that I am sitting in it right now. I'm actually just firing it up and pulling it out of the shop so I can clean some stuff up. What we are going to do today is put the whole front clip on the FJ40, which is both exciting, but I've also kind of been dreading it. And let me tell you why. I've owned a bunch of these Landcruisers, FJ40s, like 8, I think now. And I've swapped front ends and stuff, and like sheet metal, fenders, hoods, aprons, front bibs, you name it. And for some reason, they never really fit the same from one Landcruiser to another. It's always the fitment's kind of different. And that's okay, but if you combine that fact with the fact that this is a fiberglass body, and everything that mounts to it has been questionable thus far, because the last owner was a hack, apparently. And you combine that with the fact that despite spending the last 3 months in an exhaustive search to buy original Fenders, OEM stuff, I could not find a good set. I bought aftermarket ones that are really, really good and really, really high quality, and they were really expensive. But they are aftermarket Fenders. So you combine the sheet metal that didn't come off this body with aftermarket fenders and a fiberglass tub, and what you come up with is a dumpster fire of a job. Like, if this goes smoothly, I will be absolutely blown away. But anyway, once we get it done, then we're going to do a bunch of fabrication work. We're going to mount the ECU. We're probably going to build a battery box. We're going to loom the wiring harness. We're going to build some other mounts and things under the hood, so you're not going to want to miss it. It is going to be an entertaining episode, especially if you're entertained by me being absolutely miserable most of the time mounting up sheet metal and getting it all aligned properly. So stick with me. This is going to be good. But first, let me get this Ultima out of here. Alright gang, so we are going to start this video off with a few fun facts. Numero uno. Did you know that 82% of the people who watch my videos are not subscribed to the channel? That seems absolutely crazy to me. And the only thing that makes it crazier is fact number 2, which is that I am now on a regular schedule posting new content every Saturday in the early afternoon, which means no matter what happens, you will never have to wait more than 7 consecutive days for another installment of me making terrible decisions with my money. Seems like a no-brainer. Which leads me to fact number 3, and that is that in about 10 to 12 seconds, I am going to shut up, and you are going to have an 11-second intro where you will have nothing better to do with your time other than hover down to the bottom right corner of this video, hover over that little watermark that I put in there to make this very convenient, and just punch that subscribe button. I think it's obvious what you need to do during that intro. Alright guys, so I haven't done a front end on one of these things in a while, but I'm going to take a stab at it and say that I should probably start with just the front bib, which is this piece, and the 2 aprons. And basically that would center the front end, get it aligned height-wise with the body, and then attach it to the body on both corners. And from there we could move on to fenders. But I just think the fenders have to locate this thing in so many spots that starting there is probably a poor idea. And also, keep in mind that the body just has the bolts put through it. It's not tightened down yet. And the reason why is because I wanted to get it aligned with the front end and get everything to work, be copacetic, if you will. So, to start off, we got to put this mount on the front. And for those that don't know, the whole front end of a Landcruiser is hinged. It's pretty cool. It goes like that. And that way, you can not only flip the front bezel out of the way to like service the radiator, or even pull the engine out if you wanted to, you can just pop it off right there. So you unbolt everything else and it just pops on. Pretty neat, very serviceable in the field. Now, I know for a fact, just from experience, that these things have a rubber spacer under them. I don't have that original spacer because it's one of the things that I just couldn't find. I did try to find one, but couldn't get one. So I cut this piece of 1/4 inch rubber that's under it, and I think that height is going to be good. And the reason why is because I actually had to lift the body off a little bit more than the factory mounts. There's a thick washer in there between the mount and the frame. And that is because I was hitting right here. And this is the support for the side steps. You'll see more on that later when we put the side steps on later in this episode. But because I had to lift that up, I don't know, 1/4 of an inch. I'm assuming maybe, actually a little less than 1/4 of an inch, probably 1/8. I'm assuming this was about 1/8 of an inch before, add another 1/8 for that, and maybe we'll be right around the right alignment. I don't know, but I can cut some spacers to go, like, you know, wafer this between sheet metal or something to get it just right. Now, we're gonna bolt this piece on to the bib over there and throw it on here. But I can already tell you one thing that concerns me is these power steering lines. I really think, and I actually noticed this before when I was doing the body work, that I might have to notch the bib to go around that. And if that's going to be the case, I am going to just take these lines off for now. I'm not going to notch that today because I want to, you know, think very carefully about the right way to do it. So, time to go time lapse. Let's go ahead and get the hinge mounted on the bib, get the bib on the truck, and then put the aprons on. Before we do that, though, let me point out one more thing that's going to be tough about this. The holes in the body where the aprons bolt in, there's only one. There's supposed to be 3 here. There's only one, and there's none on this side. So I have to drill all those holes and get this right. Honestly, I have absolutely no idea what the previous owner did with this thing. It didn't have a front end on it when I got the body, but it looks like it was assembled. I mean, everything else was cut, just very poorly. So let's clean up that mess and get this front end on. Alright guys, so problem number 1. As you saw, I already drilled a hole in this thing, and I never thought to double check that the first hole was in the right spot because, I don't know, how could you possibly mess it up that bad? But I severely underestimated the previous owner of this thing. It's off by, what, an inch? Ridiculous. So, I gotta measure that gap, drill 2 more holes. I mean, it's no big deal. It's just behind the thing in the fiberglass. It's not the end of the world, but certainly doesn't make me happy. So I'm going to put those 2 in, and then we'll get the apron mounted right. I do have one major concern that's kind of arising right now, and that is that I just feel like this bib is too low. So the Landcruiser hood has like a steep drop off right here, but I just went and measured it, and it's like 4.5 inches. This radiator cap is 5.5 inches. So would not surprise me if this aftermarket radiator had the holes kind of in the wrong spot, and I need to drill new holes and lower this thing about 1 inch or more, which I could easily do because it's got all kinds of clearance in the bottom of the radiator support, and maybe that's all the proof we need to know that it is in the wrong spot. I don't know, but either way, we might wind up doing that. So probably I'll just lower it and then drill new holes in the radiator support and tap them 1/4-20 or whatever the heck these things are, and then that'll be the end of that. But we'll keep putting the front end on either way because I am quite confident we're going to come up with other problems. Okay, So first and foremost, this thing looks sick. The orange was definitely an awesome call. Got to give my wife credit for that. This thing looks freaking beautiful. I mean, I guess I got to give some credit to the painter, whoever that was. But I have problems. So first and foremost, this apron doesn't even come close to fitting, nor does it fit here. Now, what does that tell you? If it's pinched at the top and open at the bottom, and then over here, it's open at the top and tight at the bottom, it tells you that the front of the body is too low, right? Because if the body came up, that would close that gap, and then it would also allow the top to come forward, it would close that gap. What's funny is, on this side, I have, I guess, roughly the same problem, but not nearly as bad. Like, this gap is pretty good. I don't mind that. It's tight at the top. That's nice. So that's really weird. So maybe the passenger side just needs to come up a little bit. I don't know. It's a glass tub, so it's going to take some work. The other funny thing is that the bezel is not straight. I mean, just compare it to that frame rail, right? It's a lot further forward on that side than it is on that side. And I guess I could see that coming, or I can see why that would be the case, because it just so happens that the body is doing roughly the same thing. It is further forward on this side than it is on that side. So I think what I'm going to do is probably put the camera down here for a minute, sit down, take a break, relax, and wrap my head around exactly what is going on here. And then I will revisit and explain to you guys how I am going to fix this problem. Give me a second. Okay, so I've resolved the issue-ish. So I ended up jacking this side up, and for whatever reason, I put about a 1/4 inch spacer under it, rubber spacer. So it sits probably 3/8 off the step support now, whereas the driver's side sits, I don't know, a 1/4 inch or less, probably closer to 3/16. But the body lines are good. That side looks good. We're level. Looks good right there. Looks good right there. We're level here. And that body line looks good. It's a little bit weird right here, how it doesn't like match up perfectly, but we'll see what happens when I put the fenders on. I mean, again, it's a fiberglass body, so, you know, you never really know. One thing that's really, really weird, I tried to straighten out the tub, but it's still like this front bib is a little bit crooked. It's a whole lot better than it was before, but it's a little crooked. However, it's a Landcruiser, guys. These things were never perfect. I mean, it's more tractor than it is truck, so I'm going to go with it for now. We're going to put the fenders on, but before we do, this is going to be a little problem, these power steering fittings. That thing is really, really close. I really don't want to cut into the bib, so I think what I'm going to do is put 90s on them, go this way, and then redo the lines and have them come through that hole in the frame and just go up right there. I don't know that I can fit a 90 on that one, but they make pretty low profile 90s, so I don't know, I might be able to. We'll try that, but anyway, let's talk about fenders. So here are the fenders. As I said before, they are brand new, but not OEM. They're really good quality though. Everything seems to line up and be really good, but I was warned about these that sometimes the holes aren't exactly perfect. And I would imagine with the way this thing is, there's no chance that the holes are going to be perfect. So I'm a little nervous because I just don't want to mess up the paint or anything. Obviously these are black because if the holes do need to get changed, I will change them. Also, we're going to drill some holes in them and mount some stuff. But once everything works, I'll take them back off and paint them orange. So I guess let's get cracking, trying to get these things on here and see how they fit. What else can I do? Is it just me, or is this thing starting to look absolutely sick? So, you guys saw on the time lapse, the driver's side fender actually went on no problem. It lines up well. All the actual bolt holes line up. 1, 2, 3. That one's not even there. But hey, you know, if it's not there, then it doesn't not line up. It doesn't exist. I even have to give one point of credit to the guy who owned the body before me. He got one hole on this entire front end to actually line up correctly, which is very nice. One is better than none. Now you guys also saw that the passenger side, it didn't go as smooth. I had to jack the whole body up. Didn't quite fit right, but I gotta say, once again, 1, 2, 3, 4. This side has that hole. Do line up. The ones in the body don't. That's what I said. Previous owner gets a 1 out of 4 on that one. Now there's a big gap right here. However, this thing pulls right in and tightens up to it. It even closes up this gap here really nicely. It's gonna fit beautiful, I have to say. These front portions are a little loose, but that's just, you know, single wall sheet metal. Like, it'll squeeze right up in there. And even once it was all done, this thing started floating. So I do need, like, I don't know, a 3/16 piece of rubber under that or something. Not much. And that means I have a little bit more room right here. I think I can get a fitting on there now. Life is good, guys. This thing looks absolutely badass. Now, as far as what was missing on the fenders, I showed you it was missing that one hole. No big deal, I'll drill it. These little brackets, these like support brackets, on this side, oh, actually, you know what? On neither side it has the holes. I thought it had them on this side, but neither side does it have holes for these support brackets. And that is a factory 40 option, so I don't really understand that, but I can drill them. And yeah, this side is the exact same thing. Now, a lot of this stuff was for the fuse boxes and everything that went in here. I'm not going to use any of that. Obviously, you guys have been following along with my wiring. If you haven't been, you should. Go back a couple videos and watch the wiring stuff. But I do have to mount my PCM in here somewhere. So I guess we're going to start looking at that next. And then on this side, I need to come up with a battery box. I guess it'll sit, like, I don't know, right here-ish. I got to look at where the factory 40 stuff was. And I also have to look on my parts truck out back and see if I have a good battery tray. I highly doubt it, but it's worth taking a look. All in all, guys, the front clip is looking awesome. Let's do a little work on the PCM mount and on the battery tray mount, and then we're going to put the hood on this thing, and it's going to start looking really complete. Okay, guys, so now that we got our awesome looking front clip on, and by the way, I just want to point out, this is the time when you really get to just soak in all the hard work on making all this stuff look brand new. Our steering system down there, our radiator support, our wiring, because it all kind of comes together when you put a nicely painted front end on it. Like, this thing is beautiful. It's all like brand new, except some of the dirty stuff on the engine. But remember, if you've been watching the channel for a long time, this stuff is all painted. I redid everything on it and painted the block and everything. It's just that it's been sitting outside for a while, so it's dusty. I'll clean all that up. But anyway, when I did this harness, I routed all of the ECM stuff over to the driver's side because I knew the battery was going to be on the passenger side, and I also knew that the blower motor for the heater, not that we're probably ever going to run it, but we will install it, goes in that corner. So I was kind of out of space over there already. So I'm thinking, if I can get this ECU out of here, I'm going to put the ECU like right there-ish. It's got plenty of clearance on the steering shaft. It's kind of tucked in. It's out of the way. It won't get wet. I think that's a really good spot. All I really need to do is consolidate the wiring a little bit. And then just drill some holes for my mounts and mount it to that fender. I might actually turn it around so it goes the other way, but that's neither here nor there. Let me show you guys exactly how I'm going to mount it on that. Okay, guys, so as you know from watching the channel, I do everything I possibly can to either fabricate every single part here or buy good American-made products. However, I was totally resigned to building like a serious billet mount for this ECU, and it was going to be pretty expensive and it was going to be time consuming, and I was going to do it on the CNC machine over in the corner. But then I found these brackets and they were $10 on Amazon, guys. I mean, come on now, you know? I mean, I'm all about making it yourself or buying American-made products, but what do you want from me? So needless to say, unfortunately, China won today. Now, aside from the revelation that I will be mounting my ECU with Chinese-made bracketry, I also, while I was mounting these things up, made the executive decision that I'm actually going to put the ECU right here on the Fender. Like, I don't know. It's kind of ugly, I guess, there, but it just makes so much more sense to put it there. I wish I made the wires longer because I can't, like, tuck them up against the firewall and then run up the Fender. So I'm going to have to go across from, like, behind the alternator here and then go to it, which means I'm going to have to pull a bunch of tape and pull the loom that way. So let me do that really quick and get this kind of rerouted, and I'll show you what that looks like. All right, guys, so I got it mounted in there. I didn't drill the bottom holes because I can't really access them with a drill, but that's okay because when I pull the fenders back off, I can just put that thing back in there and drill the bottom holes. Now, I did realize I couldn't pull the harness further out from over there, but I can get a little bit more room, and I think I can tuck it back enough so when it's loomed up and, you know, looking clean in black nylon loom, I think it's going to be perfectly fine right there. I just think that's the optimal spot to mount that thing. I have to say, this thing is starting to look really good and really clean. Another thing that's interesting to me is I really feel like it looks good with black fenders. So I might not paint them orange. I might just take them back off and paint them like matte black. Do me a solid, guys. Let me know in the comments what you think about the black fenders. And keep in mind, these things have the steps that go right here, and those are going to come in like a day or two, and we're going to mount those on in this video. And they're black also, so it could look pretty cool with that black running down the side. Out of curiosity, before we move ahead with the battery box and stuff, I think I'm going to throw the hood on. Also because I'm really curious to see if it's going to fit this radiator. So let me toss the hood on. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, it looks awesome. I love it. The black fenders might be the way to go. I don't know. It actually doesn't clear up in here also, guys. I can't get a good camera shot, but it does hit, but barely, like you can see right there. However, this thing has rubber mounts under it that I put under it that aren't factory. So if I remove those, then it would bolt down on the frame, which I think is funny because usually you never want to bolt the radiator support right to the frame. You want it to be able to flex a little bit so it doesn't crack the core, but that's how it was from the factory and it worked. So, oh, what do you want? I guess I'll go back to it. This thing is awesome. I could not be happier with it right now. So now that we've seen that, let me get the hood back off of here so we can build a battery box and wrap this thing up. Okay, so now that the hood's back off, let's build a battery box and wrap this thing up. So I think I'm going to put it right here, maybe over here. I do have more room on this side. For whatever reason, the radiator is offset slightly to the passenger side in these things. They came like that from the factory. I don't know. I'm not really sure which side I'm going to put it on. We're going to figure that out in a second. But either way, I am going to make the tray out of angle iron, same way I did it on the truck. Let me just show you one of those on the Honey Badger really quick. I did do a video on this quite a while ago, but I basically just made a very simple box out of angle iron there and braced it to the frame. Obviously, on the FJ40 here, it's going to be a little bit different. But we are going to start by just making the tray itself out of the angle iron. Then we'll set this thing in there with a battery and kind of see how it fits. I don't necessarily want to mount it to the fender just because this stuff can still move once I take it apart, paint it, get it all back together. I do think that going straight to the frame and then maybe going to the radiator support is a good idea. I don't know. We'll feel that out once we make the tray, get the battery in there, and see how it's all going to fit. So let's get to welding. right, guys, so we have a battery tray now. I think it's gonna go right about right there. I haven't put the headlight in yet, so I don't want to put it too far forward. I do have the headlights, they're LED units in a box over to my right, but I don't think there's any need to mess with them. As long as I leave, like, 3-4 inches behind the mount, that's going to be fine. And I certainly have enough room to mount it right there. The battery will not protrude up over the apron and the bib, which means they'll definitely fit under the hood if the radiator fits. So I'm thinking we're going to be mounting it right there. And the way we're going to do that is by putting brackets down to the frame. And I'm either going to use that mount bolt and that mount bolt, which are both threaded holes, or I'm going to drill those and tap those like 5/16 or something, put plates on the frame, and then run supports up to the bracket. And that'll take most of the weight. And then it will wobble a little bit, and I will mount it to the radiator support to eliminate that wobble. And that'll be the end of that, and it won't mount to the front clip, which was my intent. And actually how the OEM did it, they put it like right in this region, actually, and it's mounted the exact same way to the frame, and then it's just supported. Yeah, so I think that's probably the hot ticket right there. Won't hit anything. That's a nice spot for it. So let's go ahead and start fabricating some supports for this thing and get our battery in here. Alright guys, so now we have a battery mount up front here, and I have to say this turned out cleaner than I even thought it would. It sits nice and level at the top of the body, it's easy to get at. The mount itself is very, very clean, doesn't get in the way of anything, everything really mounts around it, and honestly it really barely rocks even at all. I mean, most of that, what you're seeing right now is the battery moving, the tray doesn't really move, but what I think I'll do is probably put just a 90-degree bracket from here over to the radiator support, and that'll be it. It'll be done. I'm not going to do that yet, though, because if you remember, I think I touched on in the beginning of this episode, the height of the radiator support may change. I have 1/4-inch rubber spacers under it right now. I think I'm going to remove those to make sure the hood fits. So yeah, that's pretty much the end of that. The next thing we're going to be doing is wiring up the battery and luming the harness and stuff. But that's probably going to be the end of this episode. I don't think I have really anything else for you guys today. I do have to acknowledge that I did lie to you about one thing. I told you guys a while ago that the side steps that go right here were going to come in and I was going to install them today. Unfortunately, they didn't show up. I bought them from a dealership down in Florida, and I'm just having a problem getting them here. So I got to deal with those guys and figure out how to get them here. But I just want to remind you guys that I do actually want your opinions in the comments on whether or not I should leave the fenders like a matte or flat black. This isn't just a ploy to get comments. I really, like, my wife wants me to do it. She thinks the black looks cool. I'm right on the fence. I really want your guys' opinion. And remember that the hinges and the hood latches and all kinds of things, the emblems are going to be black. So it's going to have a lot of black accents. It might be a little bit too much black if I leave the fenders black. I don't know. So that's going to be all I got for you today. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Tell me what you're thinking. Hit that notification bell, and I will see you guys on the next episode of Ran When Parked.